Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everyone. How are you doing? It is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, Election Day, the day when you're not allowed to vote after today. We've been voting for like 6 months, and this is it. And if you're even listening to the show, rather than out knocking on doors or waiting in line to vote or risking arrest by giving water to people who are waiting in line to vote, et cetera, or giving away $1 million to someone who says that they'll vote for the guy that you want them to vote for, whatever it may be that you're doing today. Well, we appreciate your spending the time with us. Perhaps we are keeping you cool, calm, and collected on a day when you're all nervous and anticipating the results. Some of you are calmer than you thought you would be. And, well, good. Congratulations if you are. And if you're not, you're invited to hang out and relax for a little while and explore the archives if 2 hours isn't enough for you. And I don't know. I can't recommend too much more than hanging on, doing your part. And if you really do find that you have time to spare, you might find that there's something that you can do at the local Democratic campaign office, whether it is knocking on doors to see if people have voted. They have last-minute voter checks. They need people to drive others to the polls. They might just need somebody to go and run and get a dozen donuts and something to drink for the people who are working. Whatever it may be, if you feel like you want to pitch in, if you have that urge, today's a great day to do it, and it's always appreciated. Okay. So, until we can sit down and nervously watch the results that may or may not tell us anything tonight, tomorrow, the next day, whatever, we have some news to catch up on. We might as well tell some stories. I was thinking last night that I guess I kind of wanted to stay away from the horror stories of, oh no, Donald Trump is the worst person in the world and he's going to F everything up if he wins, because we're supposed to be thinking, no, not today, that he's not going to win. And I don't know if I really want to spend any time talking so much about how terrible a person he is, or, well, that I do want to spend time. I'm sorry, what am I saying? I don't want to spend that much time thinking about stories that will scare you and make you think you have to leave the country if things don't go our way. We'll just have to believe that things will go our way today. And there's lots of indications that they will. Lots of enthusiasm out there on one side and less so on the other side. I happened to see, this morning's survey of social media included, well, a number of things. But I saw a video circulating from out of New York City, a long line of people outside on the sidewalk early in the morning, having their coffee, looking at their phones, bundling up against the weather. I guess it's a little chilly. It's supposed to be kind of a warm, mild day here in the D.C. area anyway. But these folks were, where would this thing go? How come I can't find it? It's not as easy to find as I thought it was going to be. But anyway, they were lined up on the sidewalk, and we were told by the poster, who may or may not be lying, I really couldn't tell you, but it seems plausible enough, that these folks were not in line waiting to vote, but they were in fact online waiting to get on one of 6 buses to take them to Pennsylvania to volunteer for the day in GOTV operations. So that seemed pretty good. Of course, when the Trumpers see buses, they immediately think this is all fake, because no, people don't all get into the same vehicle and go to the same place for the same purpose at the same time. That's not a thing we do. We all get, I guess, into gigantic pickup trucks and run over deer on our way someplace, and maybe small children in the crosswalk, and then you get there and you complain about how America isn't great anymore. So, I don't know. They don't share rides very often. I also see some pictures of, this is a good idea. I like this one. Chelsea Chamberlain, who is on Blue Sky as CD Chambs, I guess, Chambs, like Chamberlain, but with the with the S on the end. It's a little awkward to read aloud, but easy enough to understand. Chelsea D. Chamberlain, CD Chambs, says it's 8 a.m. wherever she is, and or was anyway. And the polling place is hopping, and that's good news. Lots of people in line, but it's not just that. Line out the door, yes, but also a DJ playing very much not 8 a.m. music. LOL. I like the little setup. This guy has put his table out and his PA speakers and all of his equipment, and got a little logo thing here. DJs at the polls. I like this idea. If you can't give them water or something to eat online outside of the polls, at least you can entertain them with a little bit of music. All right. I don't know. Let's see. News of the day. Joe Rogan, the guy with the big podcast that I can't figure out exactly why anybody wants to listen to the podcast. But, we do the diametrically opposed podcast here, and no one's listening to this one except you guys. And yet millions of people are listening to the other one. I don't know. It might be the fact that he has interesting content and lots of guests. I should do a guest thing. Also the video. He pivoted to video, and I just didn't do that. That might change everything. All right. Anyway, he has given his endorsement, believe it or not, to Donald Trump. Although apparently what it took was Elon Musk going on his show, and I don't know what. I mean, I don't know whether he promised him anything or whatever. I mean, Joe Rogan's rolling in it. He doesn't need any more money necessarily, but he could always take more, I suppose. But I guess Musk came on and did the job of working as a Trump surrogate and giving Rogan the answers that he needed, he craved. He was really looking for information, I'm sure, to endorse Donald Trump. I mean, the upshot of it is, as I was posting this morning, Trump himself went on the show, and Rogan was befuddled by his appearance. And it's a 3-hour interview. And of course, Trump comes on, and more or less the first thing he says is, hey, the 2020 election was stolen. And I'm, of course, worried that the 2024 election will be stolen. But he comes on and makes we all know now that that's his mantra, and it doesn't make any sense, and he's got no proof, and he's completely making it up. But if it was taken in isolation, you would say, hey, that might be the most serious thing ever, the most serious charge certainly ever leveled about electoral politics in the United States of America. So the election was stolen, and Rogan, remember, for a day, about 5 minutes after he had this interview, was being credited with being tougher as an interviewer on Trump than any member of the mainstream, journalistic news operations, because he asked the follow-up, which was, can you give me an example of how you mean that? The election was stolen. Can you give me an example? And Trump's 3-hour answer was no. He said other words, and he said, the words he said were, yes, I can, essentially. And, but then the example was, if you take a look at what about the Hunter Biden laptop, and another thing, the schools, the litter box, there was no answer. It was essentially, the election was stolen. Can you give us an example of how? No. And Rogan's ultimate answer, I endorse you for President of the United States of America. Thank you for that thorough and compelling answer. It was, by Rogan's own admission, Elon Musk's appearance on his show that actually convinced him to do it. So I guess if you need, for some reason, to feel like you're being fair to Joe Rogan, I guess you could credit him with saying, well, he's endorsing Elon Musk's endorsement of Donald Trump. But ultimately, if you say you think Donald Trump should be elected president, and Rogan did put that in his post. He said, hell yeah, this is an endorsement of Donald Trump. After a 3-hour interview of, can you tell me what the F you're talking about? No, I can't. All right. You should be president of the United States. Why do I think that? Another guy who isn't running came in and told me some other stuff, and I guess he basically said, look, if Trump is elected president, I'll basically be president, and I'll do whatever you want. All the cool stuff that we dudes love to do. Oh, okay. Well, in that case, that's fine. Nuclear war, global warming, climate change, homelessness, pandemics, whatever. We'll deal with it. I'll get rich. So, okay, fine. What can you do? You had to figure that was coming, I guess. And of course, he waits until election day to announce it. That's not really particularly helpful either. But by most accounts, I don't know anything about Joe Rogan, and honestly, I had never heard of Joe Rogan until he was in the news frequently for having a fabulously successful podcast. That's not the worst reason in the world to have heard of somebody. But I was not among the people who were like, oh, yeah, Joe Rogan's going to do a podcast. I would check that out because I'm familiar with his work as I don't know. Joe Rogan is in the category of Kardashians to me. They're famous. They just appeared one day as a famous person, and now they're famous for being famous. I do know he has a podcast, but apparently he has had an acting career behind him. I missed that one. Very popular show and everything. I think it was mentioned here today in my feed and news radio. Like, it's a famous show, right? Missed that one. But that's my own fault. And, I mean, was he a UFC fighter too? Do I have that wrong? I don't know. This is not coming from any quarters that are going to catch my attention in the world. All right. Well, anyway, so Joe Rogan has done that. The rest of you are going to go out and vote, and that is good news, and we can just concentrate on that one for a while. Elon, by the way, out there tweeting out QAnon-style videos this morning. And, of course, having spent most of the year or two prior accusing everybody of having the woke mind virus, for him to go in for QAnon stuff on the morning of the election kind of brings us back to the every Republican accusation is a confession frame. But, okay, what can I tell you? Now all the Peanuts the Squirrel content you have been craving that we didn't get to yesterday, I suppose. Not really. Okay, there's a lot going on, and I don't know. I said that we weren't going to dive into the depressing stuff about Donald Trump necessarily, but it might just happen because of the way Pocket is built in reverse chronological order, things that I parked away. I don't know. This is not really going to motivate you to get up and go out to vote, but my guess is that this audience has already voted, so perhaps you'll want to hear a story like this. I thought this was kind of an interesting twist on the, hey, Donald Trump is a terrible person, Republicans are terrible, you got to do something about them. But a good reminder, in the Washington Post, it's Philip Bump. We haven't heard from him in a while. He produces good material, generally speaking. He makes a good point here. Trump's party, it's the Republican Party, Trump's party is not planning on preventing him from disputing a loss. And I guess we do have to raise that alarm today, just as a matter of course, because it's Election Day. Today is the end of the voting period, but the beginning of the Donald Trump protesting the counting of the vote period. And it's just a matter of how long will that last. Lots of people out with their various predictions about how soon networks will call it, by the way. And, lots of worry about it lingering and taking a long time. But I did see a few people saying, I just think it'll be normal. I think by tomorrow night it'll all be done. There were days in the not too distant past when they were calling it late at night on Tuesday night. Rarely much before midnight, but if you stayed up late, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 o'clock, it was all kind of over. We're all sort of hoping for one of those again. But it would be nice if it was not multiple days. And, of course, the faster it happens, the less time there is for Donald Trump to get riled up about it. But, I don't know whether he needs a basis in fact or anything. Certainly not, to make his claims does he need a basis in fact. But the longer we wait, to make the call, the more time there is for him to say that the delay is part of the rigging. And I guess, I don't know, to the extent anybody is basing things on, well, factually speaking, how long has it been since the polls closed, and yet there is no answer? I think they're just going to be angry and furious regardless. Now, as a matter of fact, I did see something before I dive into this article. You want a diversion? I saw Adam Serwer had posted something at The Atlantic yesterday, and it was a good piece, and ultimately one I decided not to pocket and put aside because, I don't know, Adam Serwer has sort of distilled himself down to, this is a good thing, distilled himself down to such a succinct, he himself has embodied the essence of what the F is wrong with Donald Trump and his supporters. Of course, with his famous line, that the cruelty was the point. Nothing encapsulates the Trump era and the Trump ethos, if that's the right word for it, better than that. But he made a comment about the piece that he had posted, and his summation of it was that he was reporting again on having attended some Trump rallies recently, as he had done in 2016, and he basically came away with the same impression that, it's grievance-driven, et cetera, et cetera. Here is, he was posting this yesterday. I went to some Trump rallies like I did in 2016, and I found people deeply enthralled to a fictional, wait a second, gotta wait for it to come up, deeply enthralled to a fictional universe, essentially, and angry about being victimized by events that did not occur, but that they believed had happened because Trump told them that they did. And I mean, that really kind of, and again, encapsulates everything. It's a little bit more complex, and the cruelty is the point. That is very succinct. But this really does explain a lot about the rally culture and the Trump bubble. And it sort of occurred to me there, reading that I was like, that is an interesting description. That is a little bit like what I guess I would imagine it would be like to find out that a hypnotist was a major party candidate for president and was running for president. Like, that he just holds, and all of a sudden there was a science fiction story, like, Manchurian Candidate, Deadpool, weird kind of genre of, maybe Bob Roberts thrown in there as well, a political horror thriller of a wacko psycho running for president. But what would happen about that? I mean, we're worried about things like, well, we don't want convicted felons voting because reasons, they are something. They're outside of society. They pay their debt to society. They get out. They want to straighten out. Why don't we let them vote? I don't know. But I wondered ever whether the thinking was, well, if we allow convicted felons to vote, then they'll want to vote for convicted felons like them. And we don't want convicted felons running for president. Well, we have that. So I don't really know what the problem is. And ironically, of course, the people who are angriest about convicted felons getting the right to vote back are the people who are going to go and vote for a convicted felon, and who now wear T-shirts that say, hell yeah, I'm voting for the convicted felon. I don't know. Anyway, but it occurred to me that, there's a story for you. What if that was what was happening? I can't say that it's, any crazier than what's actually happening. It's a very stupid idea and a stupid timeline you would be in, or a fake timeline in a movie. The idea being that a Las Vegas style, perhaps, mass hypnotist, somebody who gets up on the stage and says, you're all getting very sleepy, so sleepy like you wouldn't believe, sleepy like you've never had before, and it works, and people drowse and nod off, and I mean, they are getting drowsy and nodding off at the rallies. There is that too. And then, I don't know, something happens, and he says crazy stuff, and they walk out, and hypnotized robots, there are litter boxes in the elementary schools for students who identify as furries. These are very long things to be repeating back. Usually it's just I'm a cowboy, yeehaw, until I snap my fingers. But these are very complex messages. Children are being transitioned by gender surgery without parents' permission during the school day. And the election was stolen. Russia is our friend. Peanuts the squirrel is a very important thing, and I should actually talk about that. They're eating pets, All of these, they're crazy-ass stories, but people are walking out of there saying, no, it's true. And the rest of the world who didn't attend the show and wasn't hypnotized by the guy on stage are like, what are you even talking about? That's so crazy. I mean, that is a dumb science fiction storyline. But compare it, if you will, and ask yourself, which is the least likely? Like, that's a very unlikely scenario, right? But on the other hand, is it likely that a guy who says he's a billionaire but is constantly coming up short of cash, has bankrupted not only multiple businesses in a row, but bankrupted casinos, which I thought was virtually impossible to do, and everything is a fraud, everything falls apart on him, he's an idiot, his brain is melting, he's a serial rapist, he's a child molester, he is a model pesterer, he holds Bibles upside down, he doesn't know what he's talking about, 2 Corinthians, walk into a bar, etc., etc. And with the full-throated support of the American evangelical Christian community, this guy runs for and eventually, wins the presidency, and then loses in horrific style, and then is renominated, and they just can't stop voting for this guy. Is that a more likely scenario? Then, yeah, I don't know how it happened. We know lots about Donald Trump. No one has ever said he's got hypnotic powers. I don't feel like he could hypnotize me, but isn't that what everybody who goes into one of those shows says? I don't know. I thought it was weird and an interesting point to make, but really a better way to just, a good excuse for talking about Adam Serwer's encapsulation of things, a much more likely description of what's going on. Just that, for whatever reason, I mean, this appears to be true. We just don't know why it's true. And mass hypnosis isn't the worst explanation, especially, actually, now thinking in light of the whole power of positive thinking thing. Maybe that's something I should dig up and talk about today. It won't change the outcome of the election. It's a little late for that. But you tell me why Trump rallies all around the country are filled with people who appear, quite correctly, as Adam Serwer puts it, to be deeply enthralled to a fictional universe, angry about being victimized by events that did not occur, but that they believed had happened because Trump told them they did. Why is Trump able to convince people that they did? That's the basic question. And 3 hours later, the answer from Joe Rogan's next guest is, we don't know, but it doesn't matter because they are endorsed as a fantastic interview. All right. So where I was going with this was, I was eventually going to get around to Philip Bump's piece. And why don't we do that before we take our first break? Trump's party, that's the Republicans, is not planning on preventing him from disputing a loss, and this is still an important thing. Republicans, the subheader says, would still rather have Trump's base mad, well, you could have ended there, but mad at someone else. What's the angle here, Phil? Tell us. Speaking in front of a crowd of supporters in Pennsylvania on Sunday, Donald Trump offered a wistful assessment of the end of his presidency. What if it had never ended at all? And, it was dumb. You've heard the spiel, I think, specifically this one from Sunday. We had the best border, the safest border, Trump told the crowd. I won't pull down my world's favorite chart because I don't want to waste a lot of your time. Well, all right. Well, too late for that. But my world's favorite chart, done by the Border Patrol, it said we had the safest border in the history of our country the day that I left. Which, is an interesting thing, if you think about it even for a second. Like, the day you left was the best day for the border? That may have been true. But that's not what he means. The chart, like, why does he say it's my favorite chart of all time in the whole wide world? Well, it's Trump's favorite. Why? Because he credits it with saving his life when he turned his head to look at it when he was shot in July. So, there's something there, but the chart didn't do it, but whatever. Anyway, let me also add, as Philip Bump does here, the chart, my favorite chart in the world, was done by the Border Patrol. That chart was not done by the Border Patrol. And it does not show that the border was at its safest when he left office. But other than that, and make the Mrs. Lincoln story, but this is a situation in which he got shot. So maybe it's not appropriate. But what it shows instead is that the apprehensions at the border, by which they mean people apprehended there, not like I have serious apprehensions about the border, but the people apprehended at the border plunged at the outset of the pandemic. I wonder how that happened. A drop that someone on Trump's team decided to label as the day Trump left office, even though it actually occurred in early 2020, about a year before he left office. But that wasn't really what Trump was getting at, so who cares? Throw it all out. I shouldn't have left, he continued. I mean, honestly, because we did so well. The American public offered its opinion of how Trump did as president on November 3rd, 2020. They're busy doing it again, I would add, right now, today, as we speak. He lost the popular vote in 2020 by more than 7 million votes and lost 5 states that he had won in 2016. Trump very obviously didn't want to leave, even in the moment, stoking false claims about election fraud and ultimately triggering the riot at the Capitol on January 6th. Somewhat sheepishly, he left the White House on January 20th of that year, as required by law. Obviously, though, he didn't want to. So, should he lose on Tuesday? And I believe that he really should lose on Tuesday. There's little reason to assume that he won't once again attempt to stoke the idea that such a loss is invalid. It is possible that he will win, or that Vice President Kamala Harris will win by a wide enough margin that claims about fraud will be more obviously ridiculous. If he loses relatively narrowly, though, we can assume that he will once again suggest that the election was stolen from him, despite the extent to which his party is oriented around combating this imaginary threat, which is an interesting point to make also as we head off for the first break. It's not a bad place to stop. The entire party has geared itself around making it impossible to cheat like this in an election, has been doing so for several years in a row now, and yet they will say, we failed spectacularly, we're terrible at our one job. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Trying to get you through Election Day Tuesday. We left off in the middle of Philip Bump's piece in the Washington Post from, yesterday, the day before, whatever. It's time to read it to you now. And, that was actually quite an interesting point he made along the way here, that despite the fact that the entire Republican Party has oriented itself around allegedly combating alleged election fraud so that no election could ever be stolen again. We're going to pass laws. We're going to change rules. We're going to run for office. We're going to appoint people to the elections board at the county, state, municipal level all around the country. And we're going to have seminars and share information, even if it's bad information, among our entire network so this never, ever, 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 ever happens again. Their closing argument is, it's happening again. Oh, my God. We've been totally unable to prevent this. Please elect us to run the country. That is a spectacularly bad closing argument. But that's not what Philip Bump was here to tell us. It's just an interesting fact along the way. The good news, he says, for American democracy, if there's any possible way to convince you that there is some, before the results come in tonight. The good news for American democracy is that Trump doesn't have control over the levers of power that he attempted to pull to his benefit 4 years ago. Everybody now recognizes this. It should be, if he pulls out the same playbook, much, much harder to make any of this work or even culminate in an insurrection this time, because he's not the president of the United States declaring this stuff to be true. He's just a jackass who wants to be president declaring stuff to be true, and that's somewhat less powerful. But it is clear that a renewed effort to dishonestly cast the will of the public as false or illegal may nonetheless trigger negative outcomes. At a minimum, confidence in democracy among Republicans, already wobbly thanks to Trump's 2020 rhetoric, would erode further. At worst, we would again see incidents of violence that threaten the transfer of power. What's striking is the extent to which Trump's party is willing to go along with his explicit efforts to stoke doubt about the election outcome, which, again, is extremely, it really is kind of amazing, considering that they've run on, I'll bring you, and only I can bring you, election security. And their closing message is, oh, I didn't do it, but vote for me one more time and give me another chance, I guess. And then, after the election is over, I will beg you to forgive me for having, effed it up once again, but let's all go out into the street and fight somehow. You've been wrong 100 times in a row. Why am I? All right. Anyway, what's striking, as he says, is the extent to which Trump's party is willing to go along with his explicit effort to stoke doubt about election outcomes. Not just the party organization itself, now co-chaired by Trump's daughter-in-law. I do not know how Republicans let themselves get away with that one. But elected Republicans continue to divert the threat posed by Trump's anti-democratic rhetoric to elections officials and the Biden administration by refusing to push back on Trump's rhetoric. They aim to avoid stoking animosity from Trump's base toward them personally to the detriment of others, right? In other words, of course they're facilitating his claims because the only other option is to say, no, this stuff isn't true. The things he is saying isn't true. And then the crowd will turn on you and send you death threats. So rather than do that, what's the other choice? You could remain silent, which is fine for Trump. Although then he'll say, you're not loyal enough to me. And then you're going to end up having to say, I'm worried about election integrity too. And it's going to, the problems get worse because now even if you didn't say anything positive in favor of his claims, you didn't say anything about what reality is. Consider, Philip offers us, Senator Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina, who appeared on Sunday on CNN's State of the Union, where he was interviewed by the host, Dana Bash. Bash noted that former Trump advisor Stephen K. G.B. Bannon had encouraged Trump to simply declare victory on election night. She asked if Scott would urge Trump to instead allow the process to play out. Will you do that? No, of course not. Scott deflected, saying, among other things, that, the good news is we will have a fair election and Donald Trump will be our next president. Now, he's made a mistake here. He said, we'll have a fair election. Now, everyone knows that it's just hopeful rhetoric that when you say that Donald Trump will be our next president. And then when he's not, are you going to go back and say, I said we were going to have a fair election, but I was just kidding because my guy lost. Well, anyway, this was not Bash's first interview of a politician, so she noted his optimism and pressed him further. What if he doesn't win? He's setting the stage for his supporters not to believe the results if he loses, Bash said, pointing to false claims Trump has made about Pennsylvania, for instance. Do you want him to stop doing that? So what does Tim Scott say? He replied by saying he would, quote, never tell any candidate on the ballot to talk about what happens if they lose. Well, after a bit of back and forth, Bash tried again. You can see why they deflect. You think it's okay to spread false rumors about fraud and undermine the integrity of the election regardless of what happens? She asked. Dana, Senator replied. The liberal media has done a better job of spreading misinformation than any candidate I have seen so far. And I mean, I can't believe you just said somebody did something better than Donald Trump. You're going to be executed, sir. Anyway, the tennis match continued from there, where Bash says, oh, come on, Senator. That's true, says Tim Scott. Listen, here's the fact. We're not seeing the coverage of 2 assassination attempts on CNN against Donald Trump. Bash says, we did wall-to-wall coverage. Scott says, well, we're not seeing the comments about Kamala Harris talking about fascists, calling Donald Trump a fascist. Bash says, John Kelly called him a fascist, his former chief of staff. In fairness, Harris did also say that she believed Trump was a fascist when she was asked during a town hall that aired on CNN. So, no coverage, obviously. Scott's play here, redirecting the criticism from Trump back to the mainstream media, is a familiar one. It allows him to abdicate responsibility for holding Trump to account and, by extension, avoid having Trump or Trump's base excoriate him now or during any eventual re-election or presidential bid. It's not as though Scott is acting unusually for a Republican elected official. Despite what unfolded in 2020 and early 2021, there's been no pressure from the right for Trump to take a different approach to the 2024 election. And that's because there is pressure, if only tacit or potential, from the Republican base not to side with democracy against Trump. Again, this may not be an issue after Tuesday. He may win clearly or lose so clearly that even he decides it's not worth putting up a fight. And he is tired and old. There is that. But if it is close, as polling suggested may very well be, although we're starting to believe that maybe it won't be, his party and his allies have offered no indication that they would object to a renewed effort to subvert the election. And even if there's little chance that it would be successful, such an effort could inflict a lot of pain, literal or metaphoric, in a lot of places outside Washington. Never mind what happens if Trump actually wins. Come January 20th, 2029, knowing what he knows now and presumably seeing ongoing fealty from his party, would he at that point decide to just stay in office, as he says he wished he had done 4 years ago? Ugly hypothetical to ask about. But, yeah, I thought a very good point just in terms of an entire party just insists that, one, this happened the first time. Two, despite all their efforts for the past 4 years, it's about to happen again. But it's totally not their fault somehow. Please elect us one more time. And, yeah, the opportunity was there to say, the one and only group of people who could have stood up to say, this is enough. This is nonsense, this isn't true, or you're not the nominee. Just refuse to do so. So what are they going to do? Obviously, take the path of least resistance. It's not worth the candle in the Republican Party to play this game of standing up and saying, this thing that isn't true isn't true. It's better to just say, when you're asked directly, well, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I know that you're horrible. And that's the full answer. And, of course, on the Joe Rogan show, that will work to get you endorsed as president, for president of the United States. Okay, a few other interesting news items circulating, including word from, I saw this on Blue Sky yesterday from, let's see if I can't bring all this stuff up, is this... Dang, I don't know if I put the... Oh, yeah, Joshua Friedman. Okay. I thought I put away just the link that he sent around. But here it is. A Rudy Giuliani ghost story. It's a Halloween story for you. I hadn't seen this thing written up as of last night, but I imagine there might be some formal published articles about it. But he was reporting that on Halloween morning, the 31st, a moving storage company hired by Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. You remember who they were? They were the Georgia elections workers in the 2020 campaign who Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump and many others publicly accused of committing some kind of fraud by actually just doing their jobs and counting the ballots correctly. But because they finished counting and processing a number of ballots that were in a container that they had been handed, they moved on to then work on another batch of ballots. And that, of course, is tyranny and fraud and horrific, yada, yada. And so they're totally guilty of something, and they threatened them with death and destroyed their lives. And guess what? They sued, and they won $1 bajillion off of Rudy Giuliani, which was one of the few hard and fast good outcomes from all of this. And yet, Rudy Giuliani, I guess, still in a position to deny them even part of the relief that they're actually due. A moving company hired by Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss arrived at Giuliani's New York City apartment to plan the removal of his personal possessions. Remember that he was sued and lost like hundreds of millions of dollars to them and had no means to pay it. And so the judge did that thing which judges do when you win a gigantic lawsuit against somebody. They say, we're going to seize that person's assets and either turn them over to you or put them up for sale, liquidate them, and give you the cash, which whatever we plan to do. And he's got a multi-million-dollar New York City apartment and a condo in Florida, so they seized him. And one of the things that they were supposed to be able to do is not only seize this apartment, but everything in it that was of significant value, and be able to put it up for sale and liquidate it and turn it into cash and keep it. And they showed up, and guess what? They found the apartment virtually empty. And their lawyer has written to the judge about it. Plaintiffs and receivers Ruby Freeman and Wanda Moss, that's Wandrea Moss. Sorry, that's, I guess, Shay's full legal name, or at least first name, Wandrea. I'm not certain where the emphasis lies, and maybe that's why she goes with Shay. But anyway, they respectfully submit this report pursuant to the court's order of October 31st, 2024, regarding the status of defendants' compliance with the October 22nd turnover and receivership order. As of this writing, defendant has yet to transfer any property into the receiver's custody. He was ordered to do so on October 22nd. And gee whiz, he's not around. The stuff that was supposed to be in the apartment is not around. His Mercedes-Benz is suddenly not around. This guy's really cruising to get himself tossed in the clink for contempt of court, and I don't really know how his lawyers are going to avoid it either. As of this writing, defendant has yet to transfer any property into the receiver's custody. More concerningly, and as set forth in more detail below, defendant and his counsel have refused or been unable to answer basic questions about the location of most of the property subject to the receivership. Meanwhile, when the receiver's representatives were finally granted access to the New York apartment, they learned for the first time, upon entering, that defendant had moved virtually all of its contents out approximately 4 weeks ago, something that neither the defendant nor the defendant's counsel had bothered to mention. On October 30th, plaintiffs reported to the court that a representative of the receiver's moving and storage company, along with attorneys for the receivers, would be provided access to the defendant's apartment. Where is it, by the way, if you want to check in on it? 45 East 66th Street, apartment 10W, if you wanted to check it out. That visit occurred on the morning of October 31st, 2024. The visit to the apartment, which all parties understood to be for the purposes of assessing the transportation and storage needs for the receivership property contained therein, instead revealed that the apartment was substantially empty, save for some rugs, a dining room table, some stray pieces of small furniture and inexpensive wall art, and a handful of smaller items like dishes and stereo equipment. The apartment had been emptied of all its contents. Notably, that includes a vast majority, if not all, of the valuable receivership property that was known to be stored there. Anyway, it goes on and on. There's more. This, of course, based on listings and photographs of the apartment, art, sports memorabilia, expensive furniture, and other items not conspicuous enough to appear in listing photographs. But according to the representative of Douglas Elliman, who accompanied the receiver's representatives to the apartment, defendant or his representatives moved out most of the contents of the apartment approximately 4 weeks ago prior to Thursday's visit, with some additional items having been moved at a later date. Long story short here, they went to court. They said everything was there. They lied. It was already gone. The plaintiffs and receivers showed up to take what had been awarded to them in court. It was gone, and they claim not to know where it is. And gee whiz, I don't know what happened, and maybe a ghost took it. So Rudy Giuliani may end up melting his brains in jail sometime real soon. Something to look forward to as you wait for the results to come in tonight. That's a weird story. I just thought you should know about that one. There are plenty of weird stories, though, yet to come. And let's see. Open up a few more of these things here and see if we can't identify them. Oh, yes. Right. This was a disturbing bit of news, and I think we have an article about it. I guess this is a little bit depressing, but don't let it stop you from voting, certainly, or knocking on any doors. But as it turns out, after a couple of days of delays in court where everybody pretty much looked around, sitting around the courtroom tables and said, we all know that this $1 million giveaway thing that Elon Musk is doing, paying people or giving them $1 million if they win the drawing of people who sign his crazy petition to do nothing in particular. Right, but we all know that this is garbage and illegal vote buying, right? We're all pretty convinced of this. Yes. Well, as the noose got tighter and tighter, yesterday afternoon I was reading that Musk was backtracking from his original description, basically doing an out of the frying pan and into the fire sort of thing, wherein he said, as it became clearer that people were saying, look, I'm seeing right through this stupid construct of, all right, well, we're not paying people to vote or even paying them to register to vote. We're paying them at random. It's a drawing. If you sign my petition, and the petition is, I support the First and Second Amendments. Now, I don't think either of those amendments were in particular danger of repeal at the moment. So I'm not certain, what they were getting out of having them sign this thing. But really it was about who's circulating the petition and where people are being asked to sign the petition. And it's supposed to be a wink-wink thing about, well, really, if you register to vote in Pennsylvania or one of the swing states, we'll give you a chance to win some money. And even that, was just not kosher. So then he changed the purpose of it, and like I said, out of the frying pan and into the fire, he said, oh, well, what we're really doing here is not giving away $1 million to the people who signed this petition, because those sweepstakes rules are kind of weird and illegal. But instead, we're randomly selecting from the list of people who signed the petition the names of people that we then offer jobs advocating for my PAC, one of the 10 billion PACs that I'm now funding out of my giant pile of money. And $1 million is the salary we award you for representing this PAC. And then basically the response to that was, that also is illegal, and it also brings with it potential fraud type charges for lying about the nature of the giveaway for the first 2 weeks of the giveaway. So now we've got you on a charge of fraud about the first scheme that you were floating. Then the basic charges that you were doing something wrong with that first scheme. And now the basic charges that you're still doing something wrong with your second charge. Well, then came news that a Pennsylvania court had decided, to hell with it all. You just go on doing it. You can continue giving out the money. It's fine. And I'm not certain on what basis that was done. And of course, the pledge was to give out $1 million a day until the election, and today's the election. So I guess that's kind of the end of it. The Hill did cover the legal wrangling. Pennsylvania judge refuses to block Musk's $1 million giveaways. Julia Shapiro and Zach Schoenfeld have written this piece again for the Hill. A Pennsylvania judge on Monday refused the Philadelphia district attorney's request to block daily $1 million giveaways from Elon Musk, or rather from his pro-Trump super PAC, in the lead up to the election. Judge Angelo Foglietta is the name of the guy, refused to block the giveaways in a one-page order with no explanation. So that won't clear things up for us at all, will it? He said he would detail his reasoning in writing separately. The decision comes just one day before Election Day, the final day that America PAC plans to hand out $1 million check to a registered swing state voter. Musk's lawyer, Chris Gober, argued at Monday's hearing that the super PAC did not choose winners at random, but rather for their potential as spokespeople, seeking to contradict Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner's accusation that he is running an illegal lottery. The $1 million recipients are not chosen by chance. Now, that was what they were claiming at first, right? We're just giving away by chance. That's legal, right? We got sweepstakes all over the place. Well, there's rules and regulations for actual sweepstakes that, all that fine type that goes onto one of those sweepstakes tickets, if you're participating in one that, I don't know, well, you've seen them before. There's lots of legal language. You didn't do any of that stuff. Why do we have those things? Look, I don't know, but we do have them, and you didn't comply, so you're in trouble. Illegal sweepstakes. Well, it wasn't a sweepstakes. It was something else entirely. Oh, well, that other thing that you've described is also illegal. That is bad. The $1 million recipients, though, they're claiming, thinking this would get them out of trouble, are not chosen by chance. We know exactly who will be announced as the $1 million recipient today and tomorrow, Gober said, so according to the Associated Press. He also noted that America PAC's final giveaway will go to registered voters in Arizona and Michigan and will not impact Pennsylvania. The Super PAC launched the giveaway in late October. Registered voters in 7 swing states, including Pennsylvania, who signed the PAC's petition supporting free speech and the right to bear arms, were eligible. America PAC has handed out 16 checks worth $1 million each so far, with 4 going to registered voters in Pennsylvania. Krasner sued Musk and his Super PAC last week, accusing them of running an illegal lottery under Pennsylvania state law, and asked the court to put the giveaways on hold ahead of the election. The Philadelphia District Attorney said Monday he would seek financial penalties against Musk and America PAC, according to Reuters. Musk's lawyers attempted to move the case to federal court. However, U.S. District Judge Gerald Papert rejected the request on Friday, sending the case back to state court and allowing a hearing to proceed before Election Day. The billionaire CEO of Tesla and SpaceX was not at Monday's hearing, although I thought he was supposedly being compelled to appear, but I guess not. Musk has played a key role in supporting Trump, blah, blah, blah. We don't really need to hear the rest of this, but, well, there's the answer. Well, what was the reason that the judge said that these things could go ahead? I don't know. I mean, it's not the fault of the columnist. No reason was given, but eventually I'm sure he will give a reason. And it may even make sense when we finally get to see it. I don't know, but I've been warning for a long time that, remember, judges don't actually have to give a reason. They can just say yes or no and leave us all guessing. And by most accounts, that's mostly what the Supreme Court has in mind in dealing with Trump going forward. Okay. So, a few other key issues. Remember, let's do some follow-up stories. We'll turn around and give you some follow-up news. You may remember that at one point there was a wackadoodle J.D. Vance staffer who made the news because they found all of his old posts saying, yeah, you know what I love to do while I'm advising senators such as, say, J.D. Vance on financial policy issues? I love doing every single drug I can get my hands on. Remember that guy? Well, guess what? It's a little late in the game, but I thought I would at least let you know that Wired magazine is the report that I have in front of me here, saying that J.D. Vance's Senate office fires a key advisor who posted about drug use on Reddit. It's not the campaign, it's the Senate office. Those posts were written in good humor and didn't hurt anybody, says Aaron Kofsky, who advised Vance on crypto and banking policy, of posts in which he wrote about using cocaine, kratom, and other drugs. They seemed like hilarious jokes at the time. Don't you remember? It's a short read. We can use this to get to the break, right? Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance's office has fired a key financial policy advisor, Aaron Kofsky. A recent Wired investigation found that Kofsky had posted extensively on Reddit over a period of years about using a variety of drugs, including cocaine and opiates, and called Vance a Trump bootlicker, Wired had been preparing a story about the news and had asked Kofsky to comment by Monday morning. Shortly before the deadline he'd been given, he forwarded Politico's Morning Money newsletter, which reported that he'd left Vance's office. How do you like that? It was an honor to serve Senator Vance and the people of Ohio over the past 2 years, he told Politico, as in he was thankful that the dark period of my life is far behind me. I see. Kofsky continued, listen, I definitely screwed up, but we've reached an unprecedented level of absurdity when this much work goes into smearing an America First staffer. He went on to question Wired's motives for publishing the piece, saying something else is going on here. No one would have any interest in this story, obviously. According to Kofsky, he was suspended on October 16th. I left, but I was suspended. They suspended me until I gave up and said, I guess I'm not getting any money here anymore. The same day that Wired published its report, he was suspended, and he was subsequently fired. But I'm leaving. I'm sure it was ultimately because those silly Reddit posts were exposed, he tells Wired. I'd note that those posts were written in good humor and didn't hurt anybody. Vance's office declined to comment. Under the username Psychotic Mammal, Kofsky posted about using cocaine, opiates, kratom, and many others for more than a decade. What a humorous thing to say. He wrote about experiencing withdrawal symptoms. Ha ha ha, so humorous. From trying to kick tianeptine, or gas station heroin. I don't know if I got that. We learned how to pronounce it, but I've forgotten since then. And also kratom, he had withdrawal symptoms with. He advised other users on how to transport drugs through TSA checkpoints without getting caught. In one post, Kofsky listed all the drugs he had tried up until that point and rated them on a scale of 1 to 10. That is a funny thing to do. Hardy har. As recently as January, Kofsky posted a video from a Senate committee hearing of Vance questioning a former DEA agent on, another one of the things that I've learned to pronounce and forgot, nidazines, or manufactured opioids. Kofsky posted the video to several drug-related subreddits. Surprising. Politician knows about these drugs. Ohio Vance asks a witness about these drugs, and is it just me, or is this super surprising? He says it was a very exciting moment for him. Like millions of Americans, he goes on to say that I've struggled with drug use, which is why my case was mostly an attempt to self-medicate against the effects of epilepsy and epilepsy medication, is his claim. I deeply regret posting those comments. I'm not proud of this, and I'm embarrassed it's being publicized in this way, but I am thankful to say that part of my life is behind me, and I'm pleased to say that so is his employment by J.D. Vance. More after this break. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Okay, so I told you I had some more. Not more about that guy, but more about other jerks, I guess. Similar story, Washington Post today. Trump organizer who secretly hosted White Nationalist podcast is fired. I don't understand how this keeps happening to these poor guys. Luke Meyer, all of 24 years old, was a regional field director for Trump Force 47. A joint effort of the Trump campaign, the RNC, and the Pennsylvania GOP, which hired him in June and fired him on Friday. All right, Jonathan Edwards tells us the story. A white nationalist who worked as a Pennsylvania-based field staffer for a pro-Trump get-out-the-vote effort for several months has been fired as of Friday. Luke Meyer, as we said, 24 years old, worked as a paid regional field director for Trump Force 47, a joint effort of Donald Trump's presidential campaign, the Republican National Committee, and state and local Republican parties. He was hired in June by the Pennsylvania Republican Party, which fired him on Friday. He confirmed to the Washington Post in a text message he had the time to do it, of course, having been fired. Meyer, under the pseudonym Alberto Barbarossa, sure, why not, was also secretly co-hosting the podcast Alexandria with Richard Spencer, the white nationalist who was a scheduled headline speaker at the deadly 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, according to Politico, which first reported Meyer's firing. Yes, true, one of the featured speakers at the Charlottesville rally/riot, but also probably more famous for being punched in the face on camera and then walking away and boo-hooing about it. And then everybody debated whether or not you should punch Nazis. And generally speaking, people said, yeah, you really should. Anyway, I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that many people came to that conclusion. Anyway, when contacted by the Post, Meyer confirmed by text that the information in Politico's article is correct. The Pennsylvania GOP made 8 payments to Meyer for a total of $9,936 between June 17th and August 10th, according to the Federal Election Commission data. Why can't we make New York, for example, white again? Why can't we clear out and reclaim Miami? Meyer, as Barbarossa, asked while guest hosting a different White Nationalist podcast in June, according to Politico. He's just on every single one of them. I don't know why that is happening. I'm not saying we need to be 100% homogeneous. I'm not saying that we need to be North Korea or Japan or anything like that. A return to 80%, 90% white would probably be the best we could hope for to some degree. Meyer admitted he was Barbarossa after Politico confronted him with its reporting. I am glad you pieced these little clues together like an Antifa Nancy Drew, he wrote to Politico contributor Amanda Moore. It made me realize how draining it has been to have to conceal my true thoughts for as long as I have. He's 24 years old. Meyer said that even though he had been fired, the white nationalist views he espouses would outlast him. Like the Hydra, he's read some comics, I guess. Like the Hydra, you can cut off my head and hold it up for the world to see. All right, we should try that. But 2 more will quietly appear and be working in the shadows. He's mixing his metaphors a little bit. I don't think there's anything quiet about the emergence of the Hydra's new heads. And they don't say, you know what, we should keep a low profile as a Hydra. We should be working in the shadows, don't you think? Maybe a desk job for Hydra this time. I mean, that would actually be an improvement. But no, something, blah, blah. He's a fierce Hydra, not a a-hole who got caught and unceremoniously fired. And he may or may not be able to grift off of his white nationalist friends for the future. And by all indications, he'll be a millionaire by the time he's 27 because they'll just throw money at him. But in the meantime, you're supposed to take comfort, I guess, in the fact that you're well educated enough to know how ridiculous his stupid Hydra line is. He's too dumb to realize how stupid his Hydra line is, but he'll end up being paid to F up your life. And you, in the meantime, will whatever. All right, you'll be scrimping and saving and suffering under his under the yoke of his oppressive worldview, even if we never elect it again. That's a good thing. Anyway. So, like the Hydra, you can cut my head off, and we should, and hold it up for the world to see, and then kick it down the stairs and go bowling with it, and then no more heads will appear, and nothing will work in the shadows, and I'll be finished and fall into an alligator pit. I don't know why he didn't say that, but he didn't. He said the opposite. Slating Trump to speak at Madison Square Garden, poisoning the blood in his speeches. In a few years, one of those groypers might even be quietly bringing me back in with a stern warning for me to be more careful next time. And that might actually be their realistic outlook for his future. They just have him lay low for a little while and then sneak him back in the back door somewhere along the line. Or you learn his name, Luke Meyer, and act appropriately and make sure he goes nowhere. Anyway, the Pennsylvania Republican Party did not immediately respond to Monday to the Post, but Politico reported that the state party said it ran a background check and otherwise vetted Meyer. If we'd had any inkling about his hidden and despicable activity, he would never have been hired, and the instant we learned of it, he was fired. The Pennsylvania GOP said in its statement to Politico, we have no place in our party or nation for people with such shameful, hateful views. So keep it in mind. Luke Meyer, 24 years old, and you are allowed to throw him in an alligator pit if you run into him. Because he thinks it doesn't matter. He won't even mind. Go ahead, chop my head off and throw me into an alligator pit. 2 more of me will appear and quietly take desk jobs somewhere. Oh no, please don't threaten me. Okay, well, that was of some interest. I just thought I would throw that in there with other wackadoodles getting caught for their behind-the-scenes secret activities undertaken under pseudonyms and being ferreted out and paying, at least initially, some consequences for it. Okay, so many other things going on here, and lots of it's going to be difficult to choose which ones to go at. Let me throw this one at you because it relates to something we did yesterday. We spent time with Greg on the Seltzer poll in Iowa, and of course you remember all about it, why it was of interest, what it showed, and how interesting a person Ann Seltzer is generally. Newsweek has what I guess is the Trump the personal Trump response to all of it. And I guess it's exactly what you would imagine Trump would say if you were asked to make a joke about how will Trump respond to this, except this was real. Trump, according to Newsweek's headline, Trump says Ann Seltzer Iowa poll is voter suppression and should be illegal. Yay, he totally understands how our country works. We should make him president, don't you think? Joe Rogan endorses this. Just wanted to put that out there. Former President Donald Trump has branded Iowa pollster Ann Seltzer a Trump hater and described her weekend poll, which put Vice President Kamala Harris ahead of him by 3 points, as suppression. Joe Rogan endorses this. The Republican nominee said that the poll, which showed Harris leading in the Hawkeye state despite Trump winning it last election, should be illegal, claiming it was designed to suppress the Republican vote on Election Day. The poll showed Harris leading Trump by 3% in Iowa, giving the Democrats some much-needed momentum in the Midwest as the election comes to a close. The poll, conducted between October 28th and 31st, found that 47% of likely voters would choose the vice president if the election were held on the day they were surveyed, and 44% of voters said they would choose Trump. Of course it's illegal. Of course you should go to jail for it, right? Joe Rogan endorses this. Several of Seltzer's polls have been accurate historically, with correct predictions in the 2008, 2012, and 2016 elections. However, that didn't stop Donald Trump from rejecting the numbers. More than that, saying on Truth Social over the weekend that the poll was run by a Trump hater who called it totally wrong the last time. In 2020, Seltzer predicted that Trump would win Iowa with 48% to Joe Biden's 41%, with the final result turning out at 53% to 44.9%. Totally wrong. I mean, got the correct winner, but didn't have the exact numbers. So, jail for you. Joe Rogan endorses this. At a campaign rally in Pennsylvania on Sunday, Trump referenced the poll in his speech, saying it's called suppression. They suppress, and it actually should be illegal. The Trump campaign doubled down on these statements, releasing a memo that read on Saturday, we might as well put it in his voice, top Democrats appear to have, oh no, it's too well written. On Saturday, top Democrats appear to have received early access to an absurd outlier poll of Iowa conducted by the Des Moines Register. Not to be outdone, the New York Times arrived right on cue with another set of polling data being used to drive a voter suppression narrative against President Trump's supporters. Some in the media are choosing to amplify a mad dash to dampen and diminish voter enthusiasm. It has not worked. Our voters are like President Trump. They fight and get shot a lot. Anyway, in a statement responding to backlash over the surprising numbers, which indicates a potential Harris landslide, Seltzer told Newsweek, these are the kind of comments seen for virtually any poll, including mine. The Des Moines Register includes a methodology statement with each story they publish. It's the same methodology used to show Trump winning Iowa in the final polls of 2016 and 2020. It would not be in my best interest, or that of my clients, the Des Moines Register and Mediacom, to conjure fake numbers. Newsweek contacted the Des Moines Register for a response to the comments via email. Other polling released over the weekend, I mean, by the way, I know that's supposed to be like the serious and responsible journalistic response, but, I mean, Trump's crazy, and he said a crazy thing. Ann Seltzer said, that's crazy, this is the reality. That's really kind of the end of the story. But we contacted the Des Moines Register to find out whether they really did conjure numbers and do so in an effort to suppress the Republican vote in Iowa. And, of course, they said no, that isn't why they did it. They were just doing a regular poll. But we confirmed that, except they didn't even confirm it. But, you better go and check. No, come on. News judgment. Give me a break. Other polling released over the weekend showed conflicting news, with Harris receiving a boost in the Midwest in the final Siena College New York Times poll, which put her ahead in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, and Trump getting solid numbers in the final Morning Consult poll, which put him in the lead for Georgia and Arizona. But we had to cover whether or not it's now voter suppression and illegal to show in a poll that Trump might be losing somewhere. Joe Rogan endorses this. Just thought I would mention that to you. All right. I thought that was an interesting story and worth some of our time on Election Day, even though it's, now too late to do anything about it. Let's see. A couple other things here, some of which I have to click through to see. Why did I put this away? Oh, yes, right. This was an interesting comment I saw via Blue Sky. Kurt Anderson making this comment. Kurt Anderson's bio tells us that he's the co-creator of Command Z with Steven Soderbergh, author of Evil Geniuses, Fantasyland, True Believers, Heyday, Turn of the Century, etc. Previously a host and co-creator of Studio 360, a columnist in the New Yorker, editor in New York, co-founder of Spy magazine, all sorts of things to his credit. And he says that in the 1960s, the nutty far right decided that fluoride in America's drinking water was a communist plot. You remember that came up because RFK Jr., of course, spent the weekend saying, yeah, I also think that we should get all the fluoride out of the water because reasons. And he began to announce a wild and bizarre set of bannings that he had planned for the Trump administration, should we be foolish enough to let that happen again. Banning mayonnaise, Mountain Dew, children's sunscreen, fluoride in the water, et cetera, et cetera. Well, back in the 60s, of course, the nutty far right decided that fluoride in the drinking water was a communist plot. And in Omaha, a big backer of banning it was our across-the-street neighbor. Marge Lamp was her name. I love Lamp. I didn't love this one, but Marge Lamp. Not Large Lamp or Large Mamp or anything like that. Marge Lamp was a big-time backer of, oh my God, the communists are putting fluoride in our water. Now, Marge had a daughter, it turns out. This is not how Kurt is expressing it. He does it much more succinctly. But Marge has a daughter, Ginni. And that's of interest. Why? Well, Kurt tells us why. So the big backer of banning the fluoride was Marge Lamp, who lived across the street, the mother of Ginni Lamp, who is, or was, the future far-right nut, Mrs. Clarence Thomas. In case you were wondering whether she comes by it honestly, by which we mean comes by her dishonesty through inheritance from her parents, the answer is yes. There you have it. Just thought that was an interesting anecdote you're unlikely to see reported elsewhere, but makes for a good addition to the mix here in Election Day morning. Okay. Let's see. Moving on with a couple other things. All right. Where do we stand? What do we want to bring up? Maybe we'll throw in a few of these other items. Here's an interesting one. Another ProPublica piece. They always come up with the good stuff. This, might have been more useful perhaps earlier in the campaign to try to maybe move some soft Trump supporters off of him, but the decisions are being made. But to the extent that they haven't been made yet, and soft Trump supporters decide to talk to one of you later on today, or just because you think this is interesting material to have in the back of your head. ProPublica reported the other day, Trump Media, the stock, the one that owns and operates, to the extent it operates at all, Truth Social, Trump Media, you'll never believe it, outsourced the jobs to Mexico to program the site, even, of course, as Trump pushes America first. On the campaign trail, the subheader tells us, Donald Trump threatened businesses that send jobs south of the border, while his own company that runs Truth Social outsourced those coding jobs to workers in Mexico, outraging some staff members. Who would have guessed it? Robert Federicci, is that right? Or Federicci, perhaps Fatureci, Federicci. Maybe, I hope, sorry, Robert, Justin Elliott and Alex Majeski, whose name we've struggled with before, put this piece together. Former President Donald Trump's social media company outsourced jobs to workers in Mexico, even as Trump publicly railed against outsourcing the campaign on the campaign trail and threatened heavy tariffs on companies that send jobs south of the border. Oh no, tariffs, but Mexico will pay them. The firm's use of workers in Mexico was confirmed by a spokesperson for Trump Media, which operates the Truth Social platform. By the way, how would you hit that with a tariff? You outsource coding jobs, and then you take the code and you move it in. There's no point at which, there's no internet border for you to impose a tariff on that work. But never mind. He doesn't know how a tariff works normally. The workers were hired through another entity to code and perform other technical duties, according to a person with knowledge of Trump Media. Of course, they put it through a third party so they wouldn't get caught, but didn't work. They got caught right here. The reliance on foreign labor was met with outrage among the company's own staff, who accused its leadership of betraying their America First ideals. The person said, "We all heard about that in the newspaper, right? No? Well, that's weird." The outsourcing to Mexico helped prompt a recent whistleblower letter from staff to Trump Media's board that has been roiling the company. That complaint, reported by ProPublica last month, congratulations, we missed it, I'm sorry, called for the board to fire CEO Devin Nunes. You know him, the former Republican congressman who used to, claim he was investigating things. The letter alleges he has severely mismanaged the company. It also asserts the company is hiring America last, with Nunes imposing a directive to hire only foreign contractors at the expense of American workers who are deeply committed to our mission. This approach not only contradicts the America First principles we stand for, but also raises concerns about the quality, dedication, and alignment of our workforce with our core values. The complaint reads, the Trump Media spokesman said that the company uses 2 individual workers in Mexico. All of 2, eh? Presenting the fact that Trump Media works with precisely 2 specialist contractors in Mexico for some sort of sensational scandal is just the latest in a long line of defamatory conspiracy theories invented by the serial fabricators at ProPublica, the spokesperson said, except it was fabricated, if it was indeed invented at all, by serial fabricators that you hired that are in your company. ProPublica is just saying, that's what these guys told us. The spokesperson declined to answer other questions about the company's Mexican contractors, including how much they've been paid, how many have been used over time, and how their hiring squares with Trump's promises to punish firms that send jobs outside the U.S. The Trump campaign did not respond to questions, of course. For a company of its prominence, Trump Media has a tiny permanent staff employing just a few dozen people as of the end of last year, only a portion of whom work on the Truth Social technology. Trump Media's hiring of Mexican coders also prompted frustration within the staff, the person with knowledge of the company said, because they were perceived by staff to not have the technical expertise to do the work. I don't know whether that's just racism, but maybe. On its homepage, Truth Social bills itself as, quote, proudly made in the United States of America. But as president and in his campaign for a second term, Trump has criticized, both as president and as on his campaign, he's criticized companies that send jobs abroad, particularly to Mexico. If elected, he has pledged to stop outsourcing and punish companies that send jobs abroad. For example, Trump recently threatened agricultural machinery giant John Deere with tariffs as it went through with its plans to move some of its manufacturing to Mexico. Used to love John Deere, now hates him, I guess. I'm just notifying John Deere right now. If you do that, we're putting a 200% tariff on everything you want to sell into the United States, Trump said. He's made a similar threat against automakers building cars in Mexico, demanding they hire American workers and manufacture domestically. I'm not going to let them build a factory right across the border, Trump promised, and sell millions of cars into the United States and destroy Detroit further, even though I would love to do that, he says. Not me, him. Trump owns nearly 60% of the social media company, a stake worth around $3.5 billion as the stock's Friday closing price, more than half the former president's net worth. The results of the election are seen widely as a major factor in the future value of the company. As the November 5th election draws closer, it's now here, Trump Media's stock price has fluctuated wildly, even as little or nothing has changed in the company's actual business, which generates scant revenue. The stock closed Friday down 40% from its recent peak on Tuesday. That drop, it has still nearly doubled, despite the drop, nearly doubled since the beginning of October. So there is that. One Trump Media board member, Eric Swider, S-W-I-D-E-R, offered a defense of relying on foreign labor in a statement to ProPublica from his lawyer. President Trump maintains an America First policy, which includes prioritizing American workers. Trump Media, however, is a global multimedia company. For a global multimedia company to utilize subcontractors, which in turn may utilize coders located in a foreign country, is a practice common to the industry, the statement said. Such global multimedia companies like Trump Media would have no right to control the employment decisions of its subcontractors, which may employ workers in a multitude of different countries in addition to the United States. Swider, a businessman based in Puerto Rico, in case you were wondering, serves on the board alongside better-known figures such as Donald Trump Jr. and Linda McMahon, the former Trump cabinet member who is now co-chair of his transition team. The outsourcing to Mexico is not the only instance of Trump Media relying on foreign workers. ProPublica previously reported that the company used a foreign firm to outsource labor to the Balkans. Nunes, for his part, is quoted in a new book about Truth Social, Disappearing the President, boasting about his ability to keep costs down at Trump Media, even though he didn't mention the outsourcing. Nobody grew as fast as we did. Very Trumpian. I don't think there's any other example even close to us out there, especially with as little money as we spent, Nunes said. Don't forget that. We built this for a fraction of what these other companies were built for. And I don't believe that's true. And B, he didn't really actually build a company. But there you have it, in case you were looking for one of those rare examples of Donald Trump being something of a hypocrite. All right. Break number 3 approaches, and let's see, trying to figure out what we can do with our remaining time, and without depressing you too much. But of course, there's always a pile of stories that you really should hear eventually about Donald Trump, but not all of which we can cram in before the election, and we don't want to do anything to worry you or further depress you. But, well, sometimes you just can't avoid it. Here's something that I guess we could start, and we'll see whether we have time to carry it through to completion on the other side of the break. I just thought this was somewhat interesting and relates back. We're going to do the weave. We're going to do the weave and go back to some of the comments that we've made on stories along the way in the past. This from the National Post, which is one of the Canadian papers. Oh, that reminds me. You know what? This, in fact, will fit much better. But I was reminded by the fact that I'm reading from the National Post that I got an email earlier this morning, very early this morning, I guess just after midnight, from John Ronald, who does chime in from time to time about what he hears on the show, and wanted to add something about Canada, and in particular about the story yesterday that, was it Calgary, where we had learned they were trying to reverse the defluoridation of their water some 10 years earlier, just by way of explaining the context of the RFK Jr. craziness. John adds this, while I'm no Canada expert, I do know that Alberta is nicknamed the Texas of Canada and is one of its more conservative provinces. And I think I'd heard that, but not specifically. I think I just sort of noticed it along the way when they were talking about election results, like the more conservative parties tended to do better out there. And, that's north of the border of the northern tier mountain states where Republicans are particularly strong in the United States. Makes a certain amount of sense. I don't know. But okay, I hadn't heard about this Texas of Canada thing. But John goes on to say, while I can say definitively that the decision to discontinue water fluoridation was, and can't say definitively that it was an ideological one, It may well have been a penny-wise, pound-foolish cost-cutting measure of the kind embraced by some conservatives to reduce the size of government expenditures in the near term. That would certainly make a great deal of sense. It would be a framework that we understand anyway. I do know that Edmonton is like the liberal Austin of Alberta and the seat of and the main seat of NDP power in the province. Calgary is more liberal than the rural areas around it, but more conservative than Edmonton, with more mixed politics. Okay. So that certainly of interest. There's some more here, by the way. The American Dental Association did a comparison between the two cities, and it was noted in the article that you read as well. So yeah, that's why they were comparing the two cities in that piece. And here's a link to the ADA's actual study, which, again, it's the American Dental Association. They're North Americans, so it's okay. They're covered. The conservatives are currently in power in the province, we are told, led by Premier Danielle Smith, who has been known for rather outlandish public statements that she later has to walk back when she is called out on them, and that sounds rather familiar. She was against a lot of Canadian COVID measures and shook up things with the Provincial Health Service in apparent retaliation. The NPD, the New Democratic Party, are the opposition party, but they do sometimes break with Ottawa to chart their own path. The NDP is Trudeau's party, but Alberta's NDP likes to maintain some independence from the national NDP. Canadian young people tell me Alberta's changing, but historically they've had more conservative premiers than liberal NDP ones. Good info.
Sup, fam? It's your boy Darwin, a.k.a. Darwin_Darko, a.k.a. the most reasonable man in America, a.k.a. KITM's senior black correspondent. You might remember me from such recordings as Spacemen versus Space Cadets and We Need to Talk About Joe Biden. Today, I want to bring you good news about that thing you've been struggling with. Do you suffer from giving too much of a damn? Do you turn on the series of tubes and find yourself outraged at the particular way some news organization strung some sentences together only to realize, nope, this is not some fictional hellscape? Well, guess what? You no longer have to accept the life of giving too much of a damn. You can do something about it, because even you, yes you, can be a show contributor. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, Mr. Most Reasonable Man in America, I'm not some professional podcast talking guy. Don't worry about it. Do you have a smartphone or some other electronic recording device? Well, that's all you need. You too can have a segment where you can read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Fair warning though, side effects may include general punditry, having opinions and hot takes, getting stuff off your chest, and hearing your own voice. If your recording lasts longer than 5 to 7 minutes, please consult kagrox@gmail.com. That's KAGROX@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. And welcome back, Canadians. So that was good information about the political scene in Alberta, Canada, that helps us make some sense of things. And guess what? Oh, a surprise guest for everybody. Not a surprise to me necessarily, but a surprise to you because I didn't want to overpromise anything. But guess what? It is Tuesday. It is 10:30. And you know what used to happen around this time prior to, let's say the last couple of weeks? Joan McCarter is joining us. And guess what? It's time again to welcome her back. Hey, Joan, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
What's going on? I'm fine. I'm happy now. Tell us what's going on that brings you back. Are they having an election or something today? Maybe something of interest for a person like you.
Something big happening nationally, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. And so, so the word is that not only, of course, is the election going on, but obviously, if you're most famous on this show for being extremely busy with lots of things, and you are likewise extremely busy with this election. But tell me, you wanted to let us know, what are you doing by way of watching and covering what's going on today?
Well, provided long COVID allows me.
Yes, we'll ask it to.
Kind of wiped out about it. For several weeks.
Incredible.
Provided I can stay up late, I'm gonna hang out with the old crew at a new place, Uncharted Blue.
Aha. Okay. Old
that
crew
includes Laura Clausen.
I know her.
And Hunter.
I know that guy.
And Mark Sumner.
Yeah.
Mark is currently suffering tornado weather and
Well,
bucket loads of rain. So
yeah. Well, that's a lifestyle choice. Sorry. You moved that's the wrong place in the country to be for.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But yeah, well, we wish him well. He deals with this all the time.
And
Yes.
gator blades.
All right. Wow. Oh, that's really something.
Yeah.
So, all right. That's a rather incredible lineup. I had seen that everybody was getting together on this for the election coverage on Blue Sky, and I was saying, you might want to give these young kids a chance, see if they can handle the politics, and they're just starting out. You want to give them a little boost, These guys, you got to stand up for the youth these days. That's all right. Well, how did that all came together under? It's Uncharted Blue. That's Hunter's creation, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And it's very fun. You can read Hunter in all his glory.
Oh, always great. Yeah, so an alternative landing spot, but look at this. It's attracted, it's gotten the old band back together in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, okay.
We haven't done anything like this before on the site, and there are some technical limitations, but I think we can work through them. And there's certainly the ability to comment. So,
all right,
come over and just chat away if you want.
Yeah, that's an exciting prospect all by itself, and it's just fun to see that group get back together and chat back and forth about, well, you're going to be watching the election results anyway, and if you're at a loss as to where you want to do it in a fractured social media landscape, and even more fractured, the sort of aging blogging infrastructure, everybody now has learned that I only have 20 seconds worth of attention span left anyway. Let's do it on social media. But if you are missing, I really would like to read some of the more expansive thoughts. Why not bring the old stuff back? Everything old is new again, right? Sure. This is artisanal, farm-to-table journalism.
There you go.
Okay.
Artisanal.
Yeah. I think old people make it, maybe. Or if hipsters and beards. Yeah.
And Charles J. I forgot to say Charles J. is also
okay. Yeah, all right. So this is going to be a fun and with the ability to comment, right, you get to chat with the authors, chime in on, what do they say about this thing?
What's happening where you are that's most exciting?
Most exciting here.
There is the big cloud above us.
Yes.
But, there's a lot happening down ballot that people can be interested in and excited about. And,
yes, of course. And
keeping the crazy people off of your city council or who knows what for you. But,
luckily for me, it's not that exciting.
The top of the ticket.
All right, that's true.
I think what I'm going to be looking at probably most of all is House and Senate races.
Oh, well, yeah. That
predictably.
Sure. That all of which, everything hangs in the balance. And, of course, if last time was any indication, and I hope that it isn't, but the composition of Congress may have more than a comfortable amount of with what to expect for the outcome of. Last time they tried very hard to make the outcome of the presidency rely on the composition of Congress, which is a horrible situation to begin with. The founders didn't do a particularly good job with how to clean up that mess. I can understand how they came to that conclusion. Well, we're all in Congress, right? Yeah. Why don't we leave it up to us? Sure. What happens when we die and it's 200 years later? I don't know. I'm not sure. What happens? What if a guy what if a hypnotist runs for president and he hypnotizes everybody into believing that there are litter boxes in schools? I'm not sure. I don't know. Well, more to the point, what if he hypnotizes Congress? Man, I hope I'm dead when that happens.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, they were.
For the record, Larry Sabato and
Yes.
the Center for Politics is predicting a 218 House for Democrats, 218 to 217 for Democrats.
218, that's the number you need. That's called the slimmest margin possible. Republicans are usually unable to deal with that. But historically, just in the last 5 to 10 years, you've watched when Republicans have that, they can't do anything. So you might think that when Democrats have that, they can't do anything. But that has not been the history. It's been a very narrow House. Very narrowly divided.
That's been with Nancy Pelosi.
True.
And we will have, maybe, I don't know. There's some key races coming up that could give us a stronger blue dog coalition, which would be problematic. So, but hey, if Democrats hold it or regain it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the blue dog caucus would be, although it's so hard to compare the two side by side, but I mean, just in terms of being, well, they sometimes hold out for additional concessions. This is the best way to both sides it. There's the Freedom Caucus, which sometimes holds out for additional concessions, and there's the Blue Dog Caucus, which sometimes hold out for additional concessions. Sometimes the Blue Dogs hold out for things like, we'd like to restructure this policy in a way that benefits maybe not necessarily the most progressive constituencies, whereas the Freedom Caucus holds out for things like, we want to blow up the moon. We think we should, everybody should have nuclear waste in their backyard, and you have the right to, and there's Jewish space lasers are starting forest fires. Okay, that is an objection. That's an interesting idea. We'll try to accommodate it in national policy. One, very dangerous and stupid, counterproductive, and causes lots of problems. The other causes lots of problems, but the comparison ends there.
Yes. Although, Jared Golden is pretty obnoxious.
Yeah. Yes, true. But there was also the history of Nancy Pelosi getting them to realize this is true. This is a thing that you technically can do, but it's an enormous embarrassment to the party and hurts the American people and our electorate terribly when you do it. So think carefully about things. And when people thought carefully about things, they said, I have my objections here, but I would like to see us be an effective governing force. Not the case with Republicans. They don't care. And, and then they paint themselves into a corner, and then they end up passing things by suspension of the rules with mostly Democratic support. So Democrats have done a pretty good job governing when they have not been in the majority the last 2 years as well.
And Jeffries has held them together extremely well.
True. So, all right. Well, that's a brightening outlook, and things brightening a little bit in the Senate outlook in the last couple of days, but hard to undo 2 months of trends that made it look like the outlook's not terrific. But what do you see in the closing moments on the Senate side?
Crystal Ball is telling us 48 for Dems, 52 for Republicans. I don't think so.
Okay.
We'll see. I think
penetrating analysis. Yeah, what else are you going to do?
Because he's Sherrod Brown.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine he doesn't. Also, Republican candidates are terrible.
Montana, I'm just not sure. We had crazy Tim Sheehy, the Republican, once again telling some wild story about how a bullet fell out of his leg.
Fell out of his leg? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're still getting lies from Tim Sheehy about about his medical record.
Yeah. Well, it might be exciting to have someone in the Senate that, armaments may fall out of their body parts just while they're walking around. Be interesting to see him go through some metal detectors to get to the Senate.
Does he have a bullet in his arm or not?
I don't know.
Did he have one in his leg that fell out? We didn't know about that before, but okay, now he's saying there is.
Yeah. I'm not sure about how that happens. I was under the impression that the armed forces, like if you got shot while you were on duty, they would check that stuff out at the hospital and do something about it, but I guess not.
He is saying that, no, there are no medical records for him.
Well, the United States government and the armed forces, they don't usually write stuff down. When they...
Well, this
why
is
do
the
That's communism.
Gunshot that he sustained in his arm, either from friendly fire when he was serving as a SEAL, or when he mishandled his handgun when he was on a trip to Glacier National Park and dropped it and got hit in the arm.
Awesome.
We still don't know for sure.
We don't know. He was there, of course, to shoot a glacier, in Glacier National Park. That's why you bring your guns with you. Most people don't know. They were puzzling over it, but no, there was a legitimate reason to go camping with a gun that you then drop, shoot yourself, maybe tell somebody, maybe don't. But what about the leg one? That one, I've never heard that one before.
I may have misread that in my
okay.
Blog,
I mean, you maybe not. It could have. You know what? There was a full magazine and it fell out of my ear. And sure, it was just there. You never know with these guys, but apparently that too was well known for a long time, and it was just sort of ignored. And then for some strange reason, in the last week or so of the race, they reported it again like it was new somehow. And then people were like, "What? We don't even know how he got shot. That's crazy." Yes, right, good, great, true. I hope you guys haven't voted yet.
Yeah. Come on, Montana. You don't want to turn into Idaho. You do not want to turn into Idaho.
No, and honestly, I mean, the case against him has been pretty clear. Not only lying about, was I shot? Was I not shot? Did I shoot myself? I don't know. But also just, compared to Tester, just not much of a Montanan, and I thought that they were really heavily into that.
They used to be. You know how Orange County, California, has gotten less hostile to Democrats?
Yes. That was
because a lot of those people have moved to Idaho and Montana.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that they were doing that, but I mean, that's fine by me. You can concentrate them there. But yeah, I guess, so they're not particularly interested in who's an original Montanan. Yeah. They're not original Montanans.
Right.
That's fair. Okay. Right. I mean, in the sense of we should be represented by another carpetbagger like us.
It's such a small population state that it can make a real difference.
Yeah.
So we'll see. On the other hand, it has the highest percentage population of Native Americans. And if they can get access for them to the ballot, then they make a big difference for Democrats. So
yes, okay. Well, that would be fantastic, and it would be well deserved to see that one come out and see the results flip, and not flip the seat, but flip what the expected result was, and have Tester returned. I was just thinking about him as a farmer, having watched. I just watched. There was a nice video of Tim Walz speaking to voters in Erie, Pennsylvania. I don't know if you happen to.
Wasn't that great?
I did love that. I just thought that's really nice, and just imagining. I mean, there's no way Donald Trump could have that conversation. That would be crazy to even imagine it. But even J.D. Vance, who's supposed to be the smart one, the guy couldn't even order a donut. He's too socially awkward to manage ordering a donut. Imagine him sitting down and asking about, how do you get those crops in? What kind of equipment do you need to harvest? And asking him what he's planting and when does that go in and what kind of equipment is it that's so expensive that you're having trouble with? And I mean, he's just around agriculture and himself understands it and has a genuine interest in that stuff. Whereas J.D. Vance, of course, would just say, good. Yeah. And Trump, of course, forget it. You know what they're doing to the kids these days in schools? It's really horrible. My microphone is terrible, by the way.
Your Trump has gotten really good. I hope that you don't have to use it anymore after today.
Well, I've been developing the gravelly, as I say, the death rattle voice. And I don't know that he's going to even allow us to do the imitation for very much longer. He's not a well man.
He is not a well man.
But that was a real nice video that we saw with Walz, and it reminded me that, Tester has got that connection to the extent that the Montanans who are voting are still...
He is Montana.
Yeah.
5th generation farmer. He is Montana, but Montana is unfortunately changing, so...
Yeah, well...
And there are a lot of people just like Tim Sheehy that are... Sheehy.
Okay.
That are coming in from out of state with lots and lots of money and sucking up lots and lots of good rangeland.
Bullets falling out of their whatever. You're not sure where they're coming from. He's a tough guy,
I still have no idea about his gunshot wound, and he says there really aren't. He was on Megyn Kelly.
Days ago. Perfect. Right, she should have said that.
She says, it's just so confusing.
Yeah.
To be clear, did you shoot yourself in the arm? He says, no, that was never the allegation. The point is, it was a friendly fire ricochet downrange that wasn't reported at the time.
Yeah.
Whereas the park rangers, the glacier said, he shot himself in the arm with his handgun, which is another big no-no, of course.
Yeah.
This was one of the problems for him. In Montana, gun safety is, a thing.
You're supposed to be, aware of this stuff. And I'm not going to shoot myself. That's crazy.
Also one would think a Navy SEAL would have gun safety as a just sort of built-in mechanism.
You would think. The Navy SEALs have not made a great name for themselves in the political arena.
Indeed, they have not.
And it's the people, I don't know, I guess people thought that they were enjoying that heroism moment post Osama bin Laden, I guess, and everybody thought it would be a great idea to run him for political office. And it turns out the ones that say, yes, I'll trade my service here for politics turn out to be kind of crummy for the most part. But I don't know. I don't know why he thinks that's an explainer. And there was no record of it because you would think, like, if you're like, well, who would have reason not to keep records or to falsify records? Like Navy SEALs, they get shot from time to time. That does happen. They go to the hospital. The doctors address it. They don't keep records. But for some reason, a park ranger in Glacier National Park is like, what if I just made up that a guy shot himself and he happened to be running for Senate? Why would that be happening? And
he paid the fine for illegally shooting off a firearm in the park.
That's interesting, too. I don't know. I just wanted it to go away, whatever. I didn't shoot myself, but they fined me for shooting myself and firing a firearm in the national park, and I thought it was a parking ticket. I don't know. I didn't read it.
It's very confusing. I would really like someday to know what that whole story really truly is.
Right.
Because this is just, if Megyn Kelly is telling him this is really confusing, he needs to try to clear it up.
Yeah, but meanwhile, he walks out of their whole, anyway, like, clear this up for me. Okay, garbage. I wonder. I don't know. Well, all right, we have to move on to other subjects. We need to hear about your idea about taxes and tariffs. Did you shoot yourself or did you not? Well, that wasn't the allegation. But did you? There's a hole in your arm. Why? Oh, it was an accident down. Okay, but then what was the park ranger with you in Afghanistan? No.
Did the park ranger do it?
Yeah, what were you doing? Why did you pay this fine? Why is there a report like this? You were nobody at the time. Why would a ranger do that to you? Why? Give me a reason. Well, at any rate, so these things.
It's not the only thing this guy has been.
That's true.
Dodgy about, but yeah, I do hope Montana's come to their senses and look over to their west and see what's happened in their neighbor and think, we don't want to go there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's the case. Tester's tried and true.
Montana's also got an abortion measure on the ballot, so that could help as well.
Yeah. Yes. We've been shocked at the outcome of referenda like that in other states already. I think it contributed mightily to the very surprising but very exciting poll in Iowa that came out over the weekend.
Yeah.
And in seeking to explain that, all you really have to do is think back to, well, we actually, we held votes on these things in some very red, they say, very red states that nonetheless said on this issue alone in isolation, 60% of the state says this was not the direction we wanted to go. No. We'll surprise you. We're going to turn around and protect the right to an abortion in Kansas. Where else did they do it? In Missouri, too? And and I think there were 4 states that I recall, but I can't recall what the states were now that I think about it. But
I can't either.
But several, and all right. So, well, this will all be much on the mind. And over at Uncharted Blue, they will remember among this crew.
Yes, they will, because particularly Meteor Blades, who's looking at focusing on those measures.
Okay. Yeah, you can't do better.
We've also got some interesting voting expansion and reform measures around the country, including Idaho. I always come back to Idaho here, right?
Sure. Our chief Idaho correspondent.
They're going to push for ranked choice. Oregon has ranked choice. Idaho wants open primaries and ranked choice, which would be very nice for those people who really hardly ever have anybody to vote for.
Yeah.
If they're not crazy.
So, right, it'd be nice to be able to cast a ballot and not feel terrible about it, or feel like, they'll count this up. It still may not win, but hey, that would be a welcome relief, I would think. So open primaries in Idaho and ranked choice.
It's been, hugely controversial. Republicans have been very, very against open primaries and closed them, in fact, in the last decade because Democrats, having no real viable Democratic option would vote for the least horrible Republican in the primaries.
Right, and that would make Republicans mad because we want the most horrible.
Yes.
So we were in it for the most horrible.
In control.
Most horrible possible person. And you guys keep voting for less horrible. We have to put a stop to that.
Yes.
All right, well, that's exciting news. And
Oregon has a whole bunch of states. 7, I think. No, 14.
14 states have
some kind of voting reform.
Oh, okay.
On the ballot. That'll be really interesting to watch. It's sort of a bellwether about where we might be moving in terms of partisanship. Yes,
that's true. Crucial outcome, and probably, I know all our attention has been on the presidential race, and it has to be to some extent, but this too will determine the outcome and the ground rules under which we'll hopefully set things right tonight so that there will be another election later on. Wouldn't it all be something? That would be something if it was all for naught because there were no more elections anyway.
No more elections ever again, which...
Sure, and I know sometimes people roll their eyes and say, but that he has never said that, except, yes, he has.
Yes, he has.
There won't have to be any more elections. We're just going to fix it all. And then, of course, the last minute ramblings that this guy has put out, the one that was almost, I would laugh if it wasn't so crazy and dangerous. But one of the last pieces from the last segment, his reaction to the Seltzer poll, I don't know if you happened to catch that one. It was in Newsweek, and I didn't see it discussed much. But, Newsweek is a weird corner, and they sometimes capture something we've missed. But Trump decided that, the Seltzer poll should be illegal.
Oh, okay.
You see, releasing a poll on Saturday showing him losing in Iowa is voter suppression, and it should be illegal. Like, if you ask people how they're going to vote, and they say they're going to vote for somebody else, that's voter suppression. That's voter suppression for me. And it should be illegal. And under me, it would be. You would have no more of these polls. So that is I mean, that's about as wild as it gets. You put out a poll that shows that I'm not winning, you're under arrest. I guess he's going to do that on day one.
needs to lose their broadcast license for allowing Kamala Harris on set.
And another thing, Newsweek, because you said this, you should lose your broadcast license. They don't have one. They should lose their printing license. They don't make those. Litter box. I don't know. Yeah. He's as crazy as it gets, and it's super dangerous, and he's backed by, now, all of a sudden, the richest person in the history of the world, apparently.
Yes.
And that's...
The illegal immigrant.
Yeah, right. That's true. We learned that one, and we're reminded of that recently. But I know we'll have to keep an eye on it. I don't know if there's any danger in the richest person in the world standing up an army of weirdos to back a barely still alive president or something. I'm not certain why it's dangerous to do that, but I'm sure there's a reason.
There must be, yeah.
All right. Well, we got to wrap things up here. So once again, Uncharted Blue is where you'll be tonight, we hope, if everything, if circumstances allow. But there will certainly be a great conversation ongoing there tonight.
There will indeed.
So super exciting. Very nice to hear from you again. I hope you're able to stay up late and enjoy yourself.
I hope so too. I hope that for all of us.
Right. And even if
I think it's going to be a long week.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long 3 months.
Yeah, that's true. I hope things continue to improve and that we hear from you more often, both on Uncharted Blue and here on our own air. It was very nice to hear from you again. Take care. Have a great night. I hope you're awake, feeling healthy, and having a party in the wee hours.
That would be heaven.
Okay. Great. Well, let us know when you have time to drop by again. And
I will do.
We'll see you soon. Take care. Okay. Thanks to Joan McCarter for coming by today. Time now for us to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And guess what? He knows it's an election day, and he has some stories for you. Trump's closing message is that he's the protector of women because women are trash, whether they like it or not. And that's how chivalrous he is. Yes, that's the delivery of the message. I saw J.D. Vance saying Kamala Harris is trash. That will not motivate any votes whatsoever, I'm sure. Everyone's just going to take it calmly and in stride.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Well, law enforcement in MAGA-dominated Southern Oregon, did you know about that, has prepared for the MAGA disturbances that MAGA promised, MAGA, on Election Day and the days after if they don't get their way. So it's good news that the authorities are up and running and ready for it. Bad news that they have to be in the first place. We'll see you tomorrow.